Well, it's everybody ready? Well, I got notes to speak on tonight. Last time I gave my testimony, I had 3 or 4 pages of notes. I think I read the first or 3 or 4 lines, and that was about it. And it was right from the hill, you know. So tonight I got me an outline, so I kind of halfway stay with it some. But I appreciate Philip letting me do this. I hadn't kind of nervous stood before such a large group and give my testimony, but I thank the Lord for it. And as I look back, and since I began, the Lord saved me in 1997, brought me to into salvation, and or used me or opened my heart to understanding who He is. I can look back in my life and I see how He's guided me through just about everything, every step. You often wonder why you go through certain things and or do certain things, and it's all for the glory of God. The things that I've been through and done, and it all had a purpose, and it led me to where I am tonight. And the people I know and the people I've been influenced by, and He directs us through our troubles, good and bad. And I always try to find ways to give praise to Him. So I want to start out giving my testimony, how I came to know the Lord. Y'all probably won't believe this, but when I was in like the 4th, 5th grade, I was a little bit of a handle. My mom was just here. She had testified to that. I remember one time in the Sunday school class, I was talking about how God uses certain people to do certain things that you wouldn't figure that He would use. And I said, like me being a Sunday school teacher. She said, Mom would have never believed that I would be a Sunday school teacher. And I asked her, is that right, Mom? And it was like, yeah, just quick, just like that. Because she remembers me when I was a youngin'. But when I got old enough, or got in some trouble at school, we won't go into that, but in the 5th grade, she decided it was good. She had a friend that she went to school with that her husband, Kenneth Mann, he taught RAs. Anybody ever been involved with RAs? Yeah, RAs, and had the booklet and all that stuff. But we started going to church, and I remember in the 4th grade, the teacher went around and asked everybody where they go to church. And it was me and this one other person didn't go. It's kind of embarrassing, you know, that we didn't go to church. So we started going after a little bit of trouble at school, and then, you know, and of course, as kids do, we used to line up. We had revivals going on, and we'd all kids line up on the front, and the preacher would say something about it, you know. And then this guy, he got up one day, and he went forward, and he got up, and he got up, and he got up, and I thought, well, I ain't saying here, so I went up too. You know, back in the day, they would line you up, and you'd give a testimony. Scared me to death. You know, I had to talk in front of these people. So, but I cried, so I didn't have to, because this guy next to me, he did. So I cried too, and he said, "Oh, praise the Lord," you know. But you know, it's just one of them emotional things. So, and then you know, we're rocking around along and doing some other stuff. It's church, always there. Doors open, we're there. You know, and then I made another decision. There was a revival going on at Coleman High School. I can't remember the guy's name, but he had a revival, and I asked the Lord. I remember going there, and I asked the Lord, "Lord, please save me," and went forward. And I stood amongst about 150 people, and I'm looking around, and nobody said nothing. So I thought, what next? So I go back to the home church, and I go up and tell the pastor again, and he presents me to the church. And then first time I went forward, the church didn't even have a baptism. We had to go to Eastside, the one that blew away. That's the only church that had baptism or baptistry at the time. And so the second time we had one there, and of course, you know, I don't know. It's a little bit to the story. I'm getting off my notes. Hold on a minute. Let me get back to where I was at. But I made 2 decisions at the time. I went forward when I was 15, and I'm not sure. But I was basing my salvation on that emotional connection at that time. And that goes a little bit more to the story. But ever since I've been involved in church, going to church, I've always admired Christian men. people who stood up for the Lord and was always there. And I remember distinctly three of them. One of them, anybody know Jack Kelly? I don't know Philip. He was always a good, godly man. He rode Harley, and Miss Faye rode one with him. And then I reckon they sold them, but he was always friendly. He was nice to me and very friendly, and I appreciate him. And there's another one that was Kenneth Mann. Everybody that was in the Gold Ridge community helped pick up taters at Kenneth Mann's house. He was good. He's kind. He's gentle. Very loving man. Meek. And another one was Archie Rayburn. I don't remember much about him, but he always had a Bible and he's always talking about Jesus. He'd come to witness to my dad and come visit with him and come from the church and visit with him. But I always admire him because I looked up Proverbs 10 and 7. It says, the memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. And I always think about these men, how good they are, how they preserve their character and always had a good Christian standing in who they were. And a good name is to be chosen above rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. It's Proverbs 22:1. And I strive to be that way. I strive to be a Christian that walks in such a manner. And that'll play into the testimony in a few minutes. Because if a Christian doesn't have a good name, it brings shame upon the Lord. People look down upon Christians and the God that we serve. So the importance of having a good name and honest and who you are and kind and gentle like these men I brought up is it's a good idea to strive to be that way. So time went on. I got in peer pressure, schools, kids, the same old stuff. I had no foundation. I had no guidance, and I knew just about every one of the Bible stories. And that's what I like about here. It's more than Bible studies. People are trained or know in their faith why they are a Christian and able to defend it. And I had none of that because I was in that generation that's what you did. Read your Bible studies and be quiet and listen. And we did that as best we could. And I remember we had a young man come in there and something happened. I forget. Our Sunday school teachers kept moving around or something. Anyway, it must have been the boys. But every time we got 3 or 4 in 1 year, and one of them got real mad. I remember he got mad and stood up and told us we was all going to hell. He walked out. Believe it or not, he didn't come back in there again. But I still remember that. He shouldn't have said that, but he was mad. But so I left, and I left the church when I got too big to get whooped where Mama couldn't make me. But she, Mama tried, as old Merle says. But Mama tried. But got out, got bigger, got a job, got a second shift job when I was like in high school, and it was just went away. 20 years. I think it's 77 or something like that, the year 76, something like that. But I walked away from the church, left the church, didn't go back for 20-something years. And I kind of lived a dangerous and immoral life. Because I look back at some of the things that I went through. I worked in the coal mines for several years, and God had a miraculous way of keeping me from harm. I remember I used to operate board drill to put shots off, and we were trying to hurry up and get done one day to get the work done for the next crew coming in. And so I would drill the hole, and the shot man would wire it up. So he wired all this over here, and every time I drilled a hole, would pull up, he'd wire it in, pouring it in, all that stuff. So we was about 2 holes shy. Thunderstorm's coming. We got to hurry up and get this done, because believe it or not, I'm standing in a 30-foot lightning rod. So I get out. I'm going to hurry up and help him with that sack and with the dynamite and the wiring and all that stuff. And I'm fixing to get out, and when lightning hits real close, it fries first. He goes, and I did that, and we go, pow. Why that didn't go off and kill every one of us, I don't know. Providence of God. He was protecting me at night, high walls caving off the next day, all kind of weird stuff, you know. Driving a truck for so many years. I remember living the immoral life. Sometimes you don't get in bed and sleep as you should. Or no, maybe it's not immoral. Maybe it was just not a righteous life. Self-centered, self-righteousness, and just doing what I wanted to do. And if you stay up day and night, sometimes and consume things you shouldn't, you don't rest like you ought to. And I was coming back one night and in the truck, and I went to sleep going down the road about 70 miles an hour. And back in the day, 18-wheelers could pull off on the side of the road and sleep. And I had reeved off the road and went over through here and hit some grassy stuff, woke up, pulled back over and got in the highway, and as soon as the truck straightened up, 18-wheeler parked on the side of the road. Missed it about that much. But God had a plan. He had a plan for my life. He had something He wanted me to do. But at the time, I didn't recognize that. He guided, protected me through many trials and troubles and stuff. So let me get back to my notes. And also, you know, people would come see me from church. They'd want to come visit with me and talk to me and all that stuff. And I found out this trick. If they ask you if you're saved, tell them yeah. They'll leave you alone. Just walk right. Oh, great. We got to go on down the road. So I figured that out. You could get that safe card, throw it on the counter. Take it done. Walk right out and leave you alone. Never asked me anything else. Never asked any, explain what makes you think that. So I had this salvation experience when I was 15 that I was relying on. But every time I'd go to church, of course, as long as I'm away from church, I'm saved. I'm on the bus, going to heaven, got my ticket punched, go. Go to church, hear the word, scared to death, lost, didn't know the Lord. I realized these things as I was living this life, and I knew something was wrong, something was missing. But when I stayed away from church, that's where I felt contented. So that's why I go to church if it didn't feel right, But I needed the Lord, and He knew it. And God's gracious. He's faithful. He's got patience for us. What a blessing that is that He waits. So believe it or not, the first marriage failed. Many circumstances beyond that that goes further, but it failed. And of course, I got my oldest daughter when she was like 23 months, and started raising her as best I could or best I know how. I mean, I'm just a kid myself, and I'm raising a youngin' and potty trained and babysitters and working and all that stuff, and then got caught up in all that, and then rocked right along. And because I love family, I love being around. I understand Philip was talking the other day about loved his family. I love my family. I like to be around my kinfolks, my babies and stuff, And, well, they're not babies anymore, but but I love being around them. Then I knew I had a reverence. I always had a reverence for God because of the way I was raised in church. But I didn't use that big old ugly word, as Ralph Manus would say, ones that carry around got handles on them, Some of them big as I. But I had a reverence for the Lord, and I always had Him in my mind because He was there, in my heart, in my mind, because that's, we raise up a child in the way he should go, and He'll never depart from it, So, then I married Stephanie's mom, and I had a son with her, and then so I can't remember exactly if she started taking y'all first, or y'all were going. We were good parents. We'd drive up and throw them out and come back and get them. We'd drive by there, and I parked way down there because them Christians come out there and get me. You know what I mean? Drag me into church, drag me to the altar and pray me through. But I would take them up there, and I can't remember how that all came about. But anyway, one day she asked me, she said, "Do you want to go to church with me?" And I was going to be the good daddy and lay on the couch and watch the news while they went. I got, I'm saved, I'm good. I got, when I was 15, played the card, So about 6 months later, she asked me again. I said, I could kill two birds with one stone. I could go to church, she'd leave me alone, and that'd be fine. She said, "Well, what's that about, Mama?" I said, "Great, we'll do that." So in my mind, the back of the church had two big doors. And in my mind, she's sitting back there on them Baptist seats in the back, And I'm thinking, we're going there and sit down. I'll do my stuff. Punch a card. I'm here. And out the door quick and all that stuff. No. We come in the back door, went over there, and I'm looking at them Baptist seats, don't see nobody I know. Hit that wall, way up front, third, fourth pew from the front. We was all the way up front where Jesus is at, right in the middle of church. And I'm sitting there and I could feel people looking at me. And I thought, well, I know these people, so I'm going to be good. I'm going to be quiet, not say nothing. I wind up, I go get this done, and I'll be one of the Easter and Christmas babies. I'll show up twice a year, maybe sprinkle a little here and there in Vacation Bible School. Done. So after the service, we were getting ready to leave, and this sweet little woman come back there, had the prettiest smile. She come back there, and she said, hey, how you doing? Hugged on me. You may know her name's Donna Ashley. Y'all know her? She come up to me with a big smile, hugged my neck, shook my hand. How you been doing? Asking about family, and just loved all over me. And I thought, my goodness, I like this. Church is fun. So I started coming back on a more and more regular basis. See, God had a plan. He knew how this would work. It's her, Miss Donna. I always remember her. She's a sweet lady, and several others would come up and talk to me and stuff, and asking about things, family, and all that. She even told me, she said, I'm still praying for your daddy. I said, well, thanks, because I ain't heard those words before. And so we carried right along, and let's see. And then I like going to church, and this is how the Lord opened my mind to Him during this time. See, I was without the Lord, but He had sermons and planned that the sermons that were coming to me was, I would compare myself to the things He preached on. And except for Revelation, it scared me to death, when He preached on Revelation. And I enjoyed the church. I compared myself to this, and I'm thinking, well, I ain't so bad. I'm good. Works. I'm basing stuff on works and what I'm doing. So, but the Lord opened my mind to this, and I like the sermons. I compare myself to them. So, not as bad. And He started filling myself up with good works. Believe it or not, I got religious. I started reading the Bible. And then I would read through some of it. It was the King James Version because that's all I had. And so I started reading the Bible, got real religious. I'd listen to radio sermons, and I started praying. When I started praying, I would pray in King James Version. Thee, thou, and those, seeketh, and that stuff. I didn't know how to pray, So I would start, but I remember it was funny to me now as I look back at how God helped me through that. Then I would start praying, and I would lean up, then I would set up, and I'd lean up on my arm. I thought I needed to get real righteous, because I was searching for the Lord, and I didn't know how. But it's like a gentle parent walking you through the relationships with Him, and that's what He was doing and teaching. And I remember at church, people would come up that was that I thought were Christian people were getting saved. Every week it seemed like somebody was giving their life over to the Lord. And I knew that I needed that. Okay, I just knew it. And the Lord was gradually opening my heart to those things, drawing me closer to Him. And I was listening to a sermon by Charles Stanley. I was listening to him back when he had a radio station. And I remember it just as plain as day. When 65 South, 59 goes to the left, goes out towards Atlanta, or out that way, 59, 20. I was coming through there and fixing to get on 59 North, and Charles Stanley was preaching on family unity, husband and wife and all that stuff, and he's preaching on that. And it just came as clear as day as this. The Lord spoke to my spirit and said, you're coming back to me under your terms. Ain't going to work. I thought, rats. I had a good thing going here. I was churchy. I'm going. I've been showing up at Sunday school here and there, and everything was great. And I thought, this is going to be me. I'm going to be one of those. And He revealed to me and showed me that I was not going to be one of those men I admired. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone that had a good name, that served the Lord and was, good men and righteous and done things for Him. And I wasn't going to be one. So I had to start back over. So at the church, like the Holy Spirit was working, I knew I had to have salvation. I knew that. I knew I had to get my heart right. And I got a piece of paper and I started writing my sins down. Now, I got a small piece. I had to turn it over. I started writing them down. And I could not believe how many I had, just because, even though I was going to church and doing all these things, I had loads of sin. And I knew I had to confess those sins. So I remember it was, I kept putting it off. And this was in the fall of 1997. And so it rocked on back to about in January 97. I was at a farm. Mary Brown was the name. I guess the lady's gone now, the farm and all's gone. But I was there, and I knew that I had to get my heart right. I knew I had to. I had to do this. And so I was, it's amazing how the Lord works. I was reading my Bible, like I said, I was getting righteous. So I got to chapter 19 of John. Y'all remember what happened in chapter 19? Jesus' crucifixion. They buried him. He'd put him on the cross, took him down. He was in the tomb. Jesus had died. So I put my Bible down and couldn't sleep. Couldn't sleep, flopped around. So finally I said, I'm going to do it. So I got up, got on my knees, confessed my sins, poured my heart out to God, asked Him for salvation. If I wasn't saved in 1973, whenever it was, I want to be saved. I want to be righteous. I want to be saved. I want to know You. And so I got through praying. I looked up. No bells, no horns, no whistles, nothing. So I was looking for His evidence is what I was doing. But, my salvation experience couldn't be nearly considered Pentecostal as we get into it. So I always tell people, and if I make it through and then they don't break out in squalling, it's amazing because I always do. I was telling my testimony the other day to a friend of mine at work named Chris. I was telling my salvation, and I told him what I'm fixing to reveal to you, and he cried. I thought. And he keeps telling me, that's a good one. Y'all need to hear him. You need to tell it. So anyway, I got through reading chapter 19 of John, and I couldn't sleep, so I repented of my sins in a prayer, and I poured out my heart to God. All right, so I can't sleep, so there was nothing. Now, this is how I met Jesus. This is how He came and revealed Himself to me. So I get up, and I started reading John chapter 20. And I don't know what happened, but when I started reading it, I'm in the story. I'm not in that truck, in that seat. I'm there. Me and Mary is going to the tomb. I mean, that's just like I'm there, seriously. So I walk down there with her, and she sees that the tomb is rolled over. She looks in. He's not there. So we go back and get Peter and John and tell them I'm listening to her tell. He's gone. So me and Mary and Peter, we take off back down through there. And in my mind, I see John run around and beat us down there, because that's what it says. He outrun both of them to the tomb. He looks in there. Then she goes in there and looks, or then Peter goes in there and he comes out. And then they go back to tell the disciples. I'm there. Remember, I'm still there. And so I'm looking at her, and she's crying, and I'm saying, He's not dead. In my mind, as I'm reading it, He's not dead. He's right there. And so He speaks to her. As she goes in and talks to the angels, and the angel said He's not here. And then she wants to know where He's at. She goes outside, and I'm with her. And it's like she's there, I'm here, and I don't see a picture of it, but Jesus is there, His presence. And so she thinks Jesus is the gardener. Tell me what you've done with His body so we can go get Him. And so I'm telling her, in my mind, I'm saying, it's Jesus, look at this. There He is. You don't have to worry. He's still alive. And so he asks her, so what you crying for? And she says, thinking He's gardener, if you tell me where he's taking the body, we'll go get him. And then she calls him by name. And I see her look at him. And the Lord doused me with the Holy Spirit. And whew, I took off and glory to Jesus. You know, there's my bells and there's my whistles, you know. And salvation entered into my life, and I have never been the same. I've always thought that I use that as saying, people that come to church, but they don't stay. I said, if they met the same Jesus I did, they would stay, because the Jesus I met loved me. He turned from being someone that judged me because I always failed. Every chance and every opportunity that I would try to be Christian, I'd fail. He loved me. He didn't judge me. He loved me, and he cared for me, which changed my whole aspect of what Christianity is and who Christ is. And that makes me want to tell everybody, because the idea of him saving me, somebody like me, I mean, I would get angry, and even as a Christian, I remember used to trains. Anybody like trains? I used to teach Sunday school class, and there's a guy that used to work for the trains, and I'd come in there and talk bad about him. This is how the Lord worked in my life. Used to, when the plant that I served or went to, the only way in, only way out was railroad tracks. And trains would stop it, and I couldn't get back. And this is some of the stories that how Jesus had worked in my life. I couldn't get back. As I would say, BC, before Christ, the gates had come down. I couldn't get across the tracks. I'd shake my fist at them. I'd stand outside and holler at them. Well, holler vulgarities, like it matters. You know what they'd do when they'd come by? They'd just wave. Doo, doo. They didn't care. But I was mad because they were stopping me from finishing my day's work. But this is how the Lord worked in my life. I would get up there and get stopped. So I'd spin around and I'd get my Bible and lean up and I'd start reading. And then the train would go by. Then I'd be mad because the train was gone, because I was right in the middle of something good. So I'd have to drive. Then I'd hurry back where I was going to the next farm and get it out and read where I was at. And I remember when I was teaching, they got me to come and teach the RA boys, children up there, and they had so many of them, I had to split them up at 2 different levels. And I was loading at Jasper at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. And I was anxious about getting back. And this is funny. But I was over the other side of Jasper, and I got loaded and heading towards Birmingham. And I always had church in my truck. Pray, talk, listen, sing songs. Everything changed. And so I'm going back through that and fretting over whether or not I'm going to get back in time, because I don't want to have to be late and all this stuff. And the Lord just revealed to me, there's not a power in this universe can stop me from being there if he wants me there. So, all right, great, no problem. I ain't worrying about this. I'm just going to go. And went through Adamsville and some of them little towns between Jasper and Birmingham. Red lights would be red up through there. And just before I get to them, they turn green. So I just weave around and go right around them. Went all the way through, didn't stop at the first red light. It got funny. Everything was opening up for me. And I thought, look at this. This is great. And it got to the plant. Guard was walking in. Most of the time he's gone. Walked up, handed a ticket to him, waved, left, got back in there and come back. And for some apparent reason, no traffic in Birmingham at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. Went there, got home, got in the shower, got in the truck, and went to RA's 5 minutes early. And I went, yeah. See, that's what the Lord will do to you. You put your faith and trust in him, he'll open stuff up. I've got stories after stories about how he's carried me through and answered prayers and done back to my notes. So it was a wonderful time. I would take notes. I still got some of them where I'd riding down the road and I'd try to take notes. You know, if you're holding a steering wheel on a piece of paper riding on, it's hard to do that. Scribble it. The only I can read it. It's written in Mike E, so I know what it says. But taking notes, soaking up everything I could get from the Lord, the Bible, stories, anything. I listened to, that's where I learned John MacArthur, David Jeremiah, Charles Stanley. I used to listen to apologetics. I couldn't get enough. I soaked up everything I could find about that because I loved the Lord and He loved me back. And it was great. It was a wonderful time. Of course, got hit with he didn't really say, that stuff, sit on your shoulder. I remember one time it was going through that stuff at 2:30 in the morning and arguing with myself whether I was really saved. You do it just because of this, that, and other stuff. Like, I just rolled the window down and said, get out from here. And rolled the window back up and went on about my business, and the Lord revealed to me, He said, the Lord revealed to me, if you worry about your salvation, you ain't no good. If you fret and worry whether or not it's true, you won't be bold in your witness. No problem. Never doubted it again. Every time the doubts or something to come on, I got this. The Lord has revealed to me because I guess that's why He gave me that salvation experience, is because I can go back to that and lock down on who I am in Christ. And it's a wonderful thing. So, let's see. I remember. Now this is going to involve Caleb and Paul as well, because I got saved, committed myself to the Lord, and didn't tell nobody. I basically just went on like I was. I didn't tell anybody. Paul was wonderful, ain't it? Thank you. But I didn't tell anybody. And they told of a revival that was coming that fall of 97. And a feeling came over me of loss, separation, anxiety. And I didn't know what it was, because I've been in relationship with God was great. There was something missing. And I remember went to the Lord in prayer, fervent prayer. I remember one time praying so hard that desiring His presence and knowledge of what was going on, it broke out in a sweat, It was, and I couldn't understand it. One of the pastors and preachers I listened to on the radio talked about prayer and fasting. I'll try that. I wanted to know what it was. I didn't want this to leave me. And so I prayed about it, and I laid down in the sleeper, and I think it was, I got it wrote down here, Luke 16:10. Those who are ever faithful in the small matters will be faithful in the greater. And I laid down and said, baptism. I haven't made it public. I haven't said anything like Paul and Caleb did. I had to be baptized. So I went forward in the revival at that church. Stephanie had come back from summer camp, and she had accepted Christ her Savior. So we got baptized the same day. How about that? The Lord works in mysterious ways, does He not? But she was baptized, and I had to make my confession of faith public. And then that's when everything started opening up to me, where I could teach, a desire to have an outreach program. Me and Miss Donna was on the same team. It's called the Faith. Anybody ever involved in Faith? Reach out. We were involved in that. It's kind of tedious for somebody that used to remembering stuff, but we went out and started going out in that. I remember we went to a house, me and Miss Donna one time, and somebody else had went with us, but I couldn't remember. And they had 3 Great Danes as house pets. Miss Donna don't like dogs, does she? No, she doesn't like them as much as you'd think. But we went right through. We done good, and we smiled through it, and invited them to church and several of those issues. But we got out and visited. I love going to Miss Donna. She's such a pleasant woman. And the Lord opened the door for me, and as far as teaching the children and teaching in Sunday school, opened up my ability to help and work in the church. And it's just that, anything that I could do, I guess it goes back to show you my faith by my works, and I can show you my works by my faith. And I was doing those things because I wanted to show the Lord how much I loved him and cared for him. He would give these opportunities to me, so I would run with them. You know, I would do these things, and I tried to bring glory to him. But after the baptism and went forward, I remember the pastor had got me and was going to baptize me. He went down and would stop, and it stopped about right along here. And I think, well, if I need to be baptized, I got to go all the way under. And so I had to bowl over backwards. He's frustrated. Go over backwards so I get wet all over, you know. And somebody said something about it up there, because when I went back, I didn't want him to drop me, so I put my foot down to help, you know. And he went down and he just stopped, you know, like, and then he wouldn't let me go any further, so I had to water around. But I got wet all over. But it was something. But one thing about helping in that faith outreach, talking to youth, telling people at work about Jesus, because I started easy, small. I started talking about church sermons, the people that I knew at church, and I would talk church to people, and that opened up the door to be able to share my experience, my salvation experience. You know, ease into those things. We go on co-visits. I remember it goes back to the prayer and fasting. I remember on the day we'd have a meal on Thursday, we'd everybody eat, and then we'd get together and get our assignments and go out. And I would pray and fast that whole day that God would direct me to somebody to speak to. And then he would, every day, or every Thursday, I believe it was, he would put in my mind to go see this one, this and this, and so we would go. And then one day, nothing. Didn't have nobody. Nobody came to mind. Nobody come to who I could think of. Nothing. And so we were fixing to leave just to go out on a cold visit. And the pastor at the time said, "Hey, why don't y'all go see that little lady? She's about so tall." And he gave her name or description of her. And I said, "Okay." So we go over there, and we go in her house and start talking to her about Christian. You know, I thought, well, why don't we go there? She comes to church. It's kind of like my story. So we sat down and started talking to her, and she got saved. The team had led her to the Lord. And we got in a car. I remember it was Tracy Corbett and I think Sharman Buckley. And we come out and they were on fire. Let's go save somebody else. Let's go second. Let's go visit this one, you know. But it was wonderful. God had led us to a place like that, and we were able to share our testimony, and it was wonderful. But talking to folks got easier, especially if you didn't know them. I'm pretty good with talking to strangers. I can strike up a conversation just about over anything. Just being friendly. But I know if you talk to strangers, spread your testimony, talk about Jesus to a stranger, it makes it easier to talk to people in your family, because your family is closest one. They know you, they remember you. And so it's easier to talk to them, and they know you and can tell the difference in your life, because they remember BC and they see how you are different. If you're no different than you are BC and now, they know that. You can't hide it. It's like hiding from your children. You know, I remember we used to hide stuff from my kids. We didn't hide nothing, did we? Didn't hide a thing. But they knew. But if we are, and one thing that really stuck to me about this, it's in 2 Corinthians 4:3. It says, if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled for those who are lost. And so we're obligated. We need to tell people. There are people. I heard a guy say something today on the radio. We're shoulder to shoulder with people that are dying, going to hell every day. Our mission field is here. Our neighbors, our co-workers, our workers, our friends. So I try to witness to people or live a life and talk about those things. The Lord is pleased when we tell others about Him. But I had to come to understanding that salvation is not in my hands. Like Philip always says, we're just mailmen. We just hand paper out. Here's the mail. Read it. You know, it's not our. We just tell the truth. And anyway, it's like we live in the South. People ain't going to punish you or go after you if you don't if they don't love Christianity. They say, oh, come on in, and they'll visit with you. But when you leave, I don't think so. Y'all have a nice day. We don't get punched in the face around here. We can be at the fuel gas pump. We can witness anywhere, and people will lovingly listen, and or they'll tell you that, like I used to, hey, I'm a Christian. So if you get an intimate time, you can spread, ask a little bit more about it. But also remember that I think Paul wrote about it in 1 Corinthians 6 and 8. It says that some plant, and some water, and some sow, and some reap. We just do our job, tell people about Jesus, and do what we're supposed to do. The more I talk about Jesus, the easier it gets. The more you bring it up to coworkers, casual conversation, individuals just talk at work. I talk to people about church, and if I hear something, from Philip says, or when we went through, I think it's 2 Peter and James, I had to take pictures and write it down. I have to read it every morning. Be kind and gentle, forgiving, passionate. And I show it to them. Said, look, read this. You need to read this. This is biblical. This is Jesus stuff right here. Read that. And I have to read it myself and try to be examples. He also used to was to change a conversation towards Christ. A lot of times co-workers get together. Sometimes they like chew on each other. Somebody to gossip, get gossip circles and talk and stuff. I remember back in the several years ago, they would get around, several of the drivers would get around and talk about an individual. And so I would get in there and join them and say, yeah, he did this and that and other, and I had a profession of faith. And then when, got conviction of that. And I told the Lord, said, but everything I'm saying is true. He said, it don't matter. You ain't supposed to do that. So in a situation like that, bring up Jesus. They would be tearing him down. I walk up and nearly start again to get into it, and I'd say, wait, what if this man was a Christian? How you think he would be acting different? Oh, yeah, and they just bust up. But you bring Jesus into a conversation it's going the wrong way, and he changes it. He changes it to the good. And then that gives you an opportunity to show people who you are and how Christianity is supposed to work, the forgiveness and those things. And I remember one time I had an opportunity. There was a guy that helped me. I used to cut people's water off. I got to know a lot of people about that. You go up and talk to them. Same people every month, just about. You go figure. And so I would, and there was some guy helping me. So he goes over to this trucking outfit, and they're washing a truck. They got acid on this truck, 18-wheeler. And he just cuts it off and leaves. This guy calls up mad. They got acid, so he ruins that paint job. He goes sue the city. So they call me and say, go out there and see what you can talk to this guy about. Yeah. See, if he don't kill you, we'll go else out there. The rest of us go out there. So hey, I take it to the Lord. I asked the Lord, said, you know the situation. I don't know what I'm going to run into here. Help me to be an example. Let me be a witness to these people. So I drive up through there, and there's sitting on the car with his mama was one of the boys I taught at RAs. So I get out, and we're just like buddies. How you doing? All that stuff. And he comes up, and he apologized for all this stuff. And the Lord took it over and smoothed it out. Hey, he goes and fights your battles for you. And so I'm done. I'm going back. So they called me. Hey, how'd it go? I said, man, you're going to believe this. I prayed about this all the way over there, and God took care of everything. Everything's fine. And he, really? Oh, okay. And he just hung up like he was wanting something juicy, But I wasn't. I just told him what happened, how the Lord took care of it, and God is just good. He takes care of you. He fights your battles for you. He goes before you. We can always have confidence that God will do that for us. To be a greater witness, you can start small conversations. You can't change the world. All you can do is just deliver the mail. You say and listen to. I listen to people who tells me, "Have a blessed day." I listen to that because most of the time, they are Christian based. So I talk to them. You too. I have been. It's great. You've been having a good day. I like to talk to strangers. Anything. The weather. You can talk about the weather. How God bless us with good weather. Anything. Like, boy, it's been nice lately, hasn't it? But have a blessed day. Or see where you go to church. I remember we had some revivals going on several years ago, and one of the Rayburn boys, a music instrument, Shenandoah, he got radically saved and was witnessing to everybody. And he always asked everybody, he said, where do you church? I mean, that's what he would say. So that's what I started using. Where do you church at? You could say something like that and start a conversation. You know, I open up the door to witness and talking to somebody. Easter is a good one too. Everybody likes to say, happy Easter. I said, yep, he is risen. And it's like Philip says, you know, it's Resurrection Sunday. It's not Easter. But you can tell of what the Lord has done for you, an answered prayer. I remember a lot of times when as I go out about my day and pray over something and God changes the situation and I see something that really happens, it's good. I'm thinking, the first thing I think, who can I tell this to? Somebody to tell how the Lord worked, how He's changed something. You know, I tell that it worked. You know, how I pray over, I lose a tool or something I'm missing. Got to have it. I remember one day I was hunting for something, and I tore up the side shed, and I'm looking in the car shed, and I'm looking for everywhere. And I said, Lord, you got to show me where this is at, because I can't find it. I got to fix this for this. If I don't find it, I got to go get one. Walk in the shed, and there it is. So I think, well, who can I tell this to? So I think I told my Sunday school class at the time that everything something like that happens, I always bring it up and mention it. But the Lord is good. He takes care of me, and He's with me. But sometimes I fail. Sometimes I don't witness like I ought to. You ever left a situation and said, I should have asked them about Christ? I do that a lot. I wished I could. I wish I could bring it up all the time. But sometimes I miss it. And sometimes I don't see it. But it's inner circle at work. You always have an inner circle of people you work with. You can talk to about Jesus. Talk to them. Get intimate. There's people at work I do about that. I talk about Christianity, doctrine issues, and there's several people I work with, and they come up and they want to talk to me. They said, I like talking to you. You got all kind of good stuff. I remember one guy used to ask me, he said, I was quoting to him several years ago about some scriptures or something. He was talking. He said, well, how in the world do you know so much about Scripture? I said, well, let me ask you this. He was a big Alabama fan. I said, when did Bear Bryant first come to Alabama? Bang, he knew it. I said, when was his first national championship? Bang, he knew it. I said, well, what year did Joe Namath come and all that stuff? I asked him several questions. He knew it. I said, you study the Bible like you study Alabama football, and you'll have these answers. And he said, well, I ain't never thought about that. I said, but that's how you learn. You have to study and spend time with the Lord. I have lots of conversations at work about Christ. Let's see, don't get me wrong. I am not a very strong Christian as much as I want to be. I fail constantly. It angers me, which they tell me it's a good sign. If you sin and fall short and it makes you mad, it's a good sign. And so I get good signs a lot. You know, I hate it. I hate it when I sin. I hate it when I fall short. It angers me. Then you get back into the Word. You pray over your situations, and God makes things different. And missed opportunities. I hate those things. I don't want to hear these words, well done, good and faithful servant. And so I want to tell people about Jesus. It's gotten easier with me because it's like a conversation that I'm having now. I'm not fearful of it as I used to be. It just comes natural. So that's basically my testimony. And anybody got any questions? But that was it in a nutshell. And I appreciate y'all listening. Thank you, Philip, for letting me do this. I hadn't got to do this in a while. But I try to love the Lord and try to live a life according to His will. It's something I want to do, because for what He's done for me. I always refer to stuff that it's like conversations sometimes that I have with other individuals. They talk about their life and their lifestyles. There's several folks that came from the foundry, and I'm a saint compared to some of them, but Jesus has changed their life. And I always refer to BC. There used to be a guy I worked with. He'd always talk about stuff he did, and I'd say, yeah, and I'd do this and this and this. I said, that's BC. So if God can save me, you should be a cinch. And witness to him and try to explain to him, because God loves these people just as much as He does me. And that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Well, you can tell how blessed I am having as a father-in-law, Steffi as a dad, and Brenda's husband. Why don't we take time to do this tonight? I think you can tell wholeheartedly, Mike enjoys talking about Jesus. And I think that is a huge hurdle for people to overcome before you ever get evangelistic. You've got to find a way to get started. One of the ways that he got started, you heard him early on. If he was in his vehicle, what was he doing? Reading his Bible or what? Praying or listening to sermons. We get in our vehicle. Tell me what the norm is. Music. Music can be honored to the Lord. It is. God inhabits the praise of His people. He does. But I'm telling you, there's no trade for God's word. There's not. Man. 101.1. Yes, 90%. They're Jewish rabbis a little weird at times. True. But everything that I've heard is I would advocate. And I want you to hear me saying I'm anti-music. I don't want you hearing that. But you can get so much music in you that you don't have anything to retain for the day when you're away from the radio. I hear a lot of people listening to jocks. Again, I'm not bashing jocks. I'm glad y'all enjoy that. It is borderline to me. Some of it is borderline Jerry Springer. You get people in there and they just have a different point of view, and it's back and forth, and I'm like, dear Jesus, I'm wasting an hour of my life about people speculating about something that's going to happen in 6 months that doesn't have a hill of beans to impact eternity. I need something for today. Anybody relate to that? I need something for today. I need something to carry me through and sustain me. And again, I'm not trying to be legalistic. We can't have fun and enjoy sports and things of Christ, but what I see in Mike is I see a soul winner. I see an evangelist. I see a man that can just eat up with the things of Christ. Eat up. And why I gave him the platform tonight is because his Christianity is not contained to a building. It's not. And it's evident in his life. And I think we wait till people die before we honor him that we miss him. So I honor him. I love him. I'm thankful for him. I learned a lot. I remember when I went and asked him if I could marry Steffi, I thought he'd say, sure. And I thought, man, it's going to be easy. But he looked at me and he said, you want to marry her? I said, yes, sir, I did. He said, well, tell me why. And I thought, I hadn't planned on that one. But Todd, this is something we put away in our back pocket one day. If a gentleman can't answer that in a spiritual way, come back to me later. And it had to be more than I just loved her. You know, I felt like God was bringing us together, and He taught me something. So when some dude comes around Carrie Grace one day when she gets about 35, I learned something. So, two more things. Many years ago, we had a ministry that Mike alluded to at our old home church, and y'all know that we all used to go to church together at Civic Grove, and several people here did at that time as well. We had a ministry called Faith. You'd pair up in groups of 3. We would meet on a Thursday night, and we'd go out. Well, Steffi and I, more Steffi than myself, we would get visits. Let's say Todd said, hey, my neighbor moved in the community. Went to visit him, I think it'd be good for somebody to see him. Gary said, hey, I got somebody I work with. I think it'd be good for somebody to go see him. Alan said somebody who's in a small group, it'd be good for somebody to go see him. And we would chart. And it was true. When Mike shared the first time he went and somebody accepted Christ, it lit a fire in him. It did. I think we need that fire lit in us. I do. And I'm concerned it's not. I'm sure in my heart. I'm concerned it's not. If we're a church that all we're going to do is come and gather information and try to live a moral life without telling people about Jesus, I think we're missing it. Does anybody agree with that? Now, how exciting would it be for us to come each and every week? People have these stories where we're sharing Jesus with somebody. That's the environment I'm praying for as a pastor that we cultivate around here. And I shared with y'all that we're going to go through the rest of the month of April with some evangelistic sermons. I know that when you preach things, as a preacher, you always think, man, I hope they get it today and start practicing it today. And I realize that's not always the case. My concern is we think we went through an evangelistic series, and now what's next, Pastor? So Sunday, we're still staying in an evangelistic series. I don't know how much longer we're going to, but it's been good for me because I want it to be the norm that what's coming out of me is what I'm allowed to intake in my life. You heard him say, he named 3 men, Jack Kelly, Kenneth Mann, and Archie Rayburn. In my study, I have a set of commentaries from Archie Rayburn. He was a pastor. He was a lay pastor, but he taught children's church for, I think, 30-something years in our church. But anytime anybody surrendered to the ministry, he and his wife used their finances to buy a pastor a complete set of commentaries. What a mark, right? But he wanted to make an investment in people, and he made an investment in mine. And I want to make an investment in the life of others, those that I'm around. You heard him talk about people at his workplace. You heard him talk about his family. You heard him talk about people at gas stations. The one thing I want us to stop saying is, I'm never around anyone. Because if that's true, we need to make some changes in our life. We do. We need to get around people where we can tell them the love of Jesus. You may agree with that. So, the next 2 or 3 minutes, I want you to be flat honest. Okay? Tell me some things that hold you back from sharing Jesus with me. And I want people just to be flat honest. I want to hear from you. You're what holds you back? Fear. Okay? Fear. Okay? Y'all help me.
I think the fear of rejection, because you want to share your faith, and then if they say no, then you're taking it personally because they told you no.
Yeah.
I know.
Can I speak to that? No, we don't do public invitations here. There's a variety of reasons why we don't do that. One of the main reasons we don't do that, pastorally, it's unbelievably discouraging. 90% of the time you stand. And usually people say, we had church today, people were all in the altar. By far and large, people just want to go to the altar. And in my pride, I gave